Hey, hello. It's 4:20. Let's get high. One of the things about getting high is that you can kind of look at your problems, from a elevated place. So, like you fly on a plane, you look down, and everything's like separated into very neat, like kind of blocks and stuff. When you get down on the earth, the density of everything is kind of overwhelming. And one of the things that have certainly has been, I just feel like I should talk about this a little bit, uh, because we've had like two um, shootings, these mass shootings, like in the last couple of weeks, and on all the death from COVID, and it's obviously upsetting to everybody. So I wanted to say that in the Zohar, it says that to take a person's life is commensurate with killing one's own child. And the obvious conclusion from that, or what we understand from that, is that we are all so deeply connected that each person, whoever they are, good or bad, pretty or ugly, whatever, tall and short, all our different possibilities, way we use our sexuality, everyone's our child. And even though everyone is not in, we don't know everybody's life, but it's particularly sad to see young people being gunned down. But I just want to add to this a little bit, I think, of needed reflection, because America has not exactly been a good country. We've been a very wealthy country. We've been out pushing for our, I forget what they call it, our, interests, taking our army and using it for our interests. I was part of that, actually. I was on the ship that started the war in Vietnam, and for no reason. I saw it close up, just for no reason than to have a war. And the war at that time, it really helped the politicians, and particularly, again, the Republicans, but really all the politicians, because you know, in those days they called it like the black people are getting uppity. So they started this war, and they excluded anyone who was married and anyone who went to college, which generally was the white population. And ended up, the black people had to go and fight in the war for Vietnam. And anyways, and we're still doing that. And we egged them on. We laughed when when we moved our forces into Saudi Arabia. That's when bin Laden decided to go to war with America, and Clinton just laughed. And they egged him on until finally they did something, and then used as a justification for 20 years of war. And the only people who made out better from this war, from any war, are the people who do business in war. That's their business. If they're making shoes or making bombs, it's all the same business. And war is big fucking business. Maybe the biggest business. And there's a saying like we'll practice war no more, and that time is certainly coming because we're approaching 1,000 years of woman and 1,000 years of peace. And though there's 220 years left until that demarcation, but the transition happens now. And certainly, we have, as we're looking at our broken country here in America, where the bridges are deteriorated, and the tunnels, the roads, the train systems, they've all been neglected in favor of war. And the only ones who made out good with the war are the people, again, who produce all this stuff. And those are all the big corporations who have their lobbyists and write all the laws. And, I think we've all had enough of it. We've all, with all, the false things and lies being said out there, you don't have to, as Bob would say, you don't have to be a weatherman to know which way the wind's blowing. And it's not just blowing, but it's a foul wind, man, because everything's been polluted. And seemingly it had to come to this conclusion, to this, I wouldn't say conclusion, to this sort of culmination, in order that, we can say enough. We had enough. We had enough progress. Enough with progress. Progress is, there are many things which I think have become essential to the human being, and I think that's very cool and very good. And a lot of it is just, it's just meaningless stuff. And though, everyone has different, I guess what's meaningless to me has meaning to somebody else. And it'll have a lot more meaning if we stop producing it. That becomes a rare item, meaningful, somebody can go out and find it. And things like this are very important in life. It's very important to have like a goal in life. If your goal in life, used to be, people had a goal to travel abroad, and they would save their money for many years. And then it'd be a big thing, and all their friends would see them off, and they would have a big party when they came home and shared with everyone their experiences and their photos. And that time is gone. Now everyone can go anywhere as fast as they want, and you got the money, you can do anything. And even more so if you don't have the money, now it's all that's what trickled down, was this need to do all these things, to pretend you're rich, to go on a big cruise and have everyone give you whatever you want, like a rich person, even though you're there with maybe 500 or however 1,000 people on one of these boats, which I heard are very luxurious. And it's not so much money that you couldn't do it every summer, apparently. So in everything, and even the things that were like, huge goals, like going to Mount Everest. So, now so many people go that they end up freezing to death waiting for their turn. So, we've had enough. From outer space to inner space to every different kind of thing the human being can imagine, we can build, we can somehow manifest it. And all right, what does it all mean? It doesn't mean anything. It's a big Disneyland. It's something just to entertain people so they can, someone can be pulling the levers. Someone can have power and they can pull the levers. And that's, this bitch McConnell, they say about him that he's, he's a very smart political person who doesn't really have any, goal. He just wants to have power. He probably couldn't care one way or another, about any of these issues. They're such hot button issues. He just uses them so he can have power. That's his trip in life. In my estimation, that man should be put in jail for being born. But, that's what I think. But anyways, I mean, I don't really want to use this time talking about politics and shit. But I think we have to recognize that we haven't been a good country, and we've all wallowed in this, excess, and we've become fat and arrogant. And we need to, in Hebrew, they call it tshuva. Tshuva means to return. We need, it's like you're traveling on the path of life, and at one point, you see that the path you're traveling on, one path leads to another, and pretty soon the path you're traveling, you get the distinct impression it's not going anywhere. It just peters off into like a little animal track, and you keep taking that, and you're in big trouble, man. And at one point, you got to stop. Before some animal jumps out of the bushes or who knows what, or you just get lost. That's it. You're lost. And many people out there are lost, and the only thing to do is to backtrack. You have to, have a sense of where you were when you got lost. Sort of like, people have relationships, and at one point the relationship goes bad, and it's like, where did we go wrong? Relationships is very hard to get back to that place because people said things, and even also going back to that path, you can't just walk back to it. Going back meaning revisiting things that you did, maybe in your haste or your arrogance or my arrogance, someone else, and you have to look at it, and you have to make a decision. Was I right or wrong? Do I owe someone? Does someone owe me? Can I forgive what someone owes me and just go on? And then you can keep going back till you get back to something that, hey, this is me. Because that's the most important thing in the world. That's what God wants from everybody, is just to be themselves. So there's a famous story about Reb Zusha. Zusha means sweet in Yiddish. So there's all these stories about him, this sweet old man, So maybe there was no Reb Zusha, who knows? I'm quite sure there was. I know there was. It's well documented, but there are many stories about him because that is such a sweet name. They tell these sweet stories about him. And one of the stories is that when he was dying, he was crying, begging God, to forgive him. And they asked him, Zusha, you're the most loved man around. Whatever you did wrong, how wrong could it have been? So Reb Zusha says, I'm not afraid I'm going to go to heaven. They're going to ask me, why weren't you Moshe Rabbeinu? Maybe you were some high, but you weren't the highest. He says, I don't have to be Moshe Rabbeinu. There's no obligation, or, why weren't you like, Shmuel Hanavi or Dovid Hamelech and all these people, they were that person. He says the thing I worry about, that I'll be so embarrassed about in the next world if I wasn't really being myself. Because that's what God loves in each person. Each person is not always right all the time. Just because God creates us doesn't mean we're always right. Or that God's even particularly interested in what we're interested in. But the truth is, every person is a book in God's library. And every book is open, and God is writing, everything that happens to has been written down in this book. And when the person dies, end of story. And when a person kills another person, it's like God was into reading that book, man, and suddenly you close the book on God, and that ain't cool. And so, murder is one of the things that's mentioned both in the 10 commandments, which are the source of the 613 commandments to the Jewish people, and also in the 7 commandments given to all people, not to worship other than the Creator, and not to use God's name in vain, and not to murder, and not to steal, and to make laws about the environment, and to make laws about sexuality, to protect women and children. And lastly, to have courts of law administering justice. That's what we're supposed to do. If we all do that, I mean, God's going to love us, unless you're Jewish. You got some other things to do. But this is such a fundamental thing, and it's not just about, I mean, obviously, murder is murder. It means you take someone's, you stop someone's life. But there's other things that we do, in the world, like, I mean, when we kill an animal, I mean, it's not murder, but it's killing. And one of the laws in Torah, one of the beautiful laws in Torah, about how we kill animals, because we're not vegetarians, and animal sacrifice, big thing in the temple, and and we eat animals, and that there's laws of how you butcher an animal. And one of the laws is that the animal is not allowed to see the knife before you cut the throat of the animal. That's the only way an animal is kosher. It has to be cut by the throat with a very sharp knife. If there's like just if it's not smooth, if there's any kind of jerkiness in it, the animal's not kosher. It has to be done extremely fast with an extremely sharp knife, and the animal's not allowed to see the knife. And these are, I mean, I don't know if these things are being done in the kosher factories, frankly, but I know that's what the law is. And there's a story about the Baal Shem Tov that he lived around the time of Reb Zusha, maybe a century before. Also, a great Jewish mystic. And there's a story about him. He didn't become actually, a recognized mystic. He didn't acknowledge or try, he didn't try to show people what he did. He tried to keep underground. So he got too much to keep underground. And then he had to put it above ground, But one of the stories, there are many stories about him before he became revealed. So one of the stories is that there's this shochet, this butcher in this town. And, he's a new butcher. The old butcher left. They hired him. And in the town, there's a person, Chaser Das. He doesn't have all his mental abilities. It means Chaser Das, like he lacks knowing. So people like that, they don't know when to talk, when to shut up. They're, God created these people. God loves these people also. We're all equal. And so this guy's hanging around the shochet, and he starts telling the shochet, you're not doing it right. And the shochet says, what do you know? And he just keeps doing it, but it goes on for days and days. And finally the shochet says, all right, I've been a shochet for 20 years, never had a problem. What'd you do? What am I doing wrong? So he says, I only know from the previous shochet. And after he kills the animal, he washed his knife off with his tears. And you don't do that. And that was Baal Shem Tov. Who could do that? Only the Baal Shem Tov, or maybe other, But we're supposed to be, kind to animals, kind to the earth, and that's a mitzvah in itself. I mean, to take care of the animals, to take care of the earth, to take care of the environment, to not to do things that are just going to get as much as you can. I grew up in San Francisco, and we just got TV, early 50s, and they had this program, a children's program called Captain Treasure. And Captain Treasure, so one of the things they did on cut, they actually had a cool field cut couple of things. One of the things I really liked, they had this artist, and a child would come up and make a mark, and he'd ask the child, what is it? And child, it's a draft, and he would, out of that mark, he might be the nose of the draft, and he would. I always thought that was just so cool that he could do that. And they had this other thing where they get this like group of like Boy Scouts or something, and they would have these. Fish bowls, and they'd be filled with dimes or quarters or $50. Maybe, I don't know if it got up to $50. Maybe it did. And there used to be a $50, very, very pretty coin. And anyways, and the kids, would come up and they'd get a chance with one hand. Could just use one hand. They could grab as much money as they could. And now these are, I don't know, maybe they grew up and, I actually know some of them, and they, grew up to be quite mean and just caring about themselves and taking as much money as they can. And, that's what we taught our children. We won the war. It's 1950. We won the war. Go out there, take as much as you can. And we used to drive down the streets and throw shit out the window. You finished your Coca-Cola. You just, what do you do with that? I just throw it out the window. And it was pristine. Everything was pristine, and no one wore seatbelts. There was this sense of everything was like beautiful, and it would just stay like that forever. And there were trout in the rivers, and butterflies everywhere, and bees, and beautiful blue skies. And it didn't take long before, we fucked everything up. Why? Because of excess. And because we saw that, people we love are getting, shot through windshields and dying. And people started realizing we're not impervious, and started enacting laws and making sure that people didn't drink and drive. And we're still doing these things, and these are essential things that need to be done in a society. But we've gotten to a place where, I think a lot of the bad things we've done in the world are coming back to us. And we really, it's not just a matter, of, like the president says, building back better. Well, certainly you want to do that. You don't want to build back worse, But we really need to have a real conversation in our country about, what the United States is about. There's not supposed to be, a state religion. And there's not supposed to be any kind of club that like one of the things they do in China, they have like a political society, and you go into it and you're part of that society. And if you're corrupt, they kill you. There's capital punishment for corrupt politicians. Wouldn't mind seeing that in America, but I don't go for, capital punishment, actually. But anyways, some of them are just, these guys are just terrible, and they know that they can get away with it. They wrote the laws. So anyways, it's like, and God obviously has covered, a word in Hebrew means respect. And God obviously sent it to us so that we will start to have respect, not just for the Creator, but for creation and for our fellow human beings. And, one can understand that when people are in a difficult way, like even in our own country, if you have like a natural disaster or God forbid. So, everyone gives. No one says, you got to pay me. Everyone gives because we cooperate, because it's, things are happening where we have to just come together and be together, and no one's worried about money. You need something, here it is. And then after those things are over, people go back to capitalism. And we tend to go between these two. And there's a third thing, which is really the culmination of these two, which is to have a cooperative society where everyone, the Chinese take care of 1.5 billion people. We're just over 300 million. We have this huge country. We should be able to house not only our own citizens, which is just, this is ridiculous, but many other people. And if it wasn't for all the wars we made, there wouldn't be this migration. And the things that that Reagan did down in Central America, now it's all coming back to haunt us. And we can't just shut our country off and pretend that they don't matter. Each one is like our child. That's just the truth of it. We're not expected, no one's expecting us to actually, maybe some people do. Some people are very empathetic and they truly feel that. And that's really good. They go and they volunteer, and that's very good. And our country needs to support that kind of thing. And the only way you can support it is by giving people a place to live. You give them a place to live, you give them the basic necessities for life, and they'll want to go out and help other people. Everyone wants to have a work. No one wants just to sit home and watch TV. Been doing it for a year, people, and no one wants to do that. People want to do things. People want to help. People want to be proud of their lives. People want to be able to leave this world and feel that, I made this, I tried to make this world better than when I came into it. I did my part in doing that. And we all make mistakes as part of the story. God loves those stories, loves those mistakes. Like a painter loves mistakes. Ooh, it's not a mistake. It's like a surprise. Oh, look what came up. I never would have thought of doing that. And that's how God is with creation, painting away, and everything we do can be used for good. And particularly, and the main thing is to have a good intention. Because God doesn't judge us according to what we do, but according to what we intend to do. So if a person intends to do good, no matter what happens, that's like God eventually will see to it that that's good. And that's the major judgment, man. If you can go to the next world and say, man, I really tried to do good. I didn't like waste my time a whole lot, and I just tried to be a good human being. That goes a long way in heaven. But taking your religion is something else, man. You want to leave your religion here. Religion is not respected in heaven. None of it. Not Jewish religion or any other religion. Not Jewish religion, because there's no word for religion, in Hebrew or in Arabic or in Sanskrit. So, if you go to the next world, it says religious Jew, and they're going to say, forget the religious part. You're a Jew. You did your Jewishness in a particular way. Maybe you followed the rabbis, or maybe you followed, what you learned, and whatever you did, it's all cool. And so, anyways, I see I'm getting close to my time. So no one wrote me anything. I'm not sure what that means. The amount of people that come to these are getting less. Maybe people had enough, but I'm going to keep doing them because I know that a few of you out there have been very kind to me and very giving, and so we'll have our little conclave, and that anyone else can come and feel free to offer questions or comments. And tomorrow, because it's already Thursday tomorrow, the end of the week, at least for these broadcasts. So I should really speak about Passover, which is happening Saturday night. And there's so much to say about Passover. You're supposed to say it Passover night, but we can say it beforehand. So anyways, uh, God willing, see you tomorrow. Don't forget to go to my website. Uh, what is it? Dovidhouse.com. I have my books there, particularly my latest book of uh, Sex, a Metaphor to History, Trump 777, and The Thousand Years of Woman. I also have my course on Kabbalistic Tarot and other books and interesting things, and help yourself. Have a great day. Be happy. Be high. Don't be low, because things are just getting better. All right.